really like book illustration more than other forms of art, and so this is why this has become such a passion to me. We're going to focus on the arts of the Islamic world because they were the great producers of manuscripts, far more than in the West. Here's a guy who's painting away, and he's going to start us off. We're going to start, it's a huge subject. The more I looked into it, the further and further back it went, and you suddenly think I've got to start somewhere, so I'm starting with the Silk Road. The name the Silk Road actually was given to it probably about 206 BC during the Han Dynasty. There was trade, plenty of trade before that. We don't even know the origins of these trading routes. But the silk trade began to flourish then. And things came from the west to China and from the east as far as Rome. These are some of the products. So as well as all these goods, of course, ideas and images travel along these amazing routes. And the Silk Road cannot really be separated out from the early spread of Buddhism. And the Buddhist monks taught through stories and images in temple caves. And particularly in Dunhuang, this is where Oriel Stein discovered all kinds of things which have helped us understand the early history of the Silk Road. In these caves, on 17 roofs of 17 caves is this image of the three hares. That's top left. On the right, this is an old Iranian tray. I don't know what the date is, but this image exists there. Bottom left, this is a roof boss of a church in Devon. And then bottom right, that is a Jewish tombstone with the three hares. So nobody knows why, how. So the Buddhism starts in India. It spreads up to Central Asia, what's now Afghanistan, and then to China, as well as going down further east, but I'm not going there. And the Buddhist monks used the earliest collection of stories that we know, the Jataka tales, to teach the religion. These are the stories of the Buddhists' reincarnation. These are caves at Turfan Oasis on the borders of China in Xinjiang, which has always been an area with massive cultural exchange. And on the right is an entrance to one of their cave temples. So the idea was that these monks prayed and meditated all day, and at night they told stories using the images. All the different stories of the Buddha's reincarnation. There's one of the images, and on the right, another Buddhist image from a palace in Tajikistan. The thing about the origins of manuscript paintings is because most manuscripts have not survived until about the 1100s, it's really hard to know where it all began. This is probably the oldest copy of a printed book that exists in the world. It's Chinese Diamond Sutra, again on Buddhism, and it was translated into Chinese by an Indian missionary in the 5th century, and it was discovered in Dunhuang by Oriel Stein. And I just put it in to show you that the problem is no manuscripts exist, so we do know about the wall pieces, but we can't tell about the books. So we move a bit over to Iran, Persia. Persia was the center of this world. People came and went, people conquered, Alexander the Great, later the Arabs. The Persian culture was really rich, and it was always a great melting pot, a great mixing place of all kinds of cultures and influences. Manichaeism was started by this fellow on the right, Mani, and he was a painter. He is still now known as the father of miniature painting. Even now, all the painters will refer to Mani as being the father of it all. Sasanian, again, a Persian dynasty from the 3rd to the 7th century. At this point, the Sasanian Empire is stretching right across what we now know as Iraq, and in fact this comes from Samarra. What you will notice is they have these very defined plaits, long black plaits. So when you look at miniature paintings, you will see these plaits coming up time and time again. They're very kind of iconic in a way. So again, they were used in rooms where narratives were recited. Okay, let's move on to the advent of Islam. So this is just to remind you that this Islamic world covers very much the same area of the Silk Road trade routes. And in 632, when those Muslim armies galloped out of the deserts of Arabia on their beautiful horses, they spread the Islamic message right across this area in a period of 100 years. I mean, it's actually mind-boggling to think of that, how they did it, with them taking their new ideas about culture and religion. But in the beginning, the first early caliphs who lived in the deserts or have their weekend retreats in the deserts of what's now Jordan. This is Casa Amra in the Jordan of Desert. It's about 710. Their hunting lodges were very much based on the Roman model, and so were the images. This is in a bathhouse, this rather voluptuous lady. So the Arabs recognized the importance of translating Greek works into Arabic to make them more widely available. And they sponsor a translation bureau in Baghdad. Picture of the House of Wisdom, at the time of Harun al-Rashid. And they send agents out to all the Muslim and non-Muslim lands in search of scholarly manuscripts in every language. I'm not sure, it looks like a caravanserai, whether the guys, the translators, lived upstairs and downstairs were their libraries and their books and their manuscripts, but it's still there. I'd love to go and see it. This is a French version of a book of medicine done at this time by Al-Zari, who did a manuscript on medicine. And this is a 14th century French manuscript showing that these translations that the Arabs made go to Europe. Under the early Arab dynasties, book production starts in earnest. The first school is known as the Baghdad School, School of Painting. And on the right, this is again from a medical manuscript. I think this guy's being treated for snake bite. I'm not sure if the fat guy on the floor is the one who's, looks like he's got a big chopper, maybe he's going to, and the other guy's blindfolded, so I hate to think exactly what's going on, but certainly something. And if you look at the style of the painting, it's quite simple, quite stylized. This is Baghdad School, so when you look at any miniatures, that's that kind of style, you know you're looking at the early Arab influence. This is from the Book of Fixed Stars. The Arabs loved astronomy and they loved astrology. This is a guy called Abdul al-Rahman, and it was copied by his son, and it's drawing on Ptolemy's Almagest. This is a book of astrology. You can see all the astrological symbols there. But you can see the painting is quite simple, quite stylized, and it becomes very much more complex later. The Maqamat. This is a collection of stories which was as widely known in the early Arab world as probably Pilgrim's Progress was known to us in the West. In the West, they said that every household in the end had a copy of Bible and Pilgrim's Progress, and certainly Maqamat and Kalila and Dimna were as widely read and known and distributed. The illustrations give, scholars say the illustrations give us a real idea of what life was like at the time. You can see all the animals and the birds on the roof. They're brilliantly illustrated. There are masses of copies of the Maqamat. Kalila and Dimna started in India, came to Persia, came into the Arab world, and then to Europe. There's a 12th century one from the Baghdad School, and then the Mamluks on the right. We've got the Arabs, and then we've got the Turks, and then we've got the Persians. Now the Turkish tribes from Central Asia poured down at various periods in time. This is Seljuk. Do you see these kind of moon faces? The images weren't just manuscripts, also they were on artifacts. And again, do you see those Sasanian plaques? Very typical of a Seljuk work. So the images were on artifacts, as I said, as well as manuscripts. This is a story of someone called Bayram Gua, and he's hunting with his musician slave Azada. She's sitting on the back of his camel there, and she says to him, You see the little gazelle on the left there? She says to him, if you nick the ear of the gazelle with your bow, she'll put her foot up to scratch her ear, and then if you're a bowman, you can pin her ear and her foot together. How horrible. But nevertheless, he did this, and then she said, God, you must be a devil. No human could do this. So he throws her from the back of his camel. It's not a very happy story, but they liked it. They liked it, and they put this image. This image is on all kinds of things. Here come the Mongols. And the river Tigris in Baghdad is running black with the ink of books. All the great manuscripts of the translation movement are destroyed by the Mongols. They destroy not only books, they destroy people. They kill and pillage everywhere they go. But they do not kill the artists. Stories exist everywhere. The Mongols have this picture of Adam and Eve. And from an artist's point of view, this is combining the landscape, this kind of motifs at the side of the Baghdad school, but the figures are very Seljuk. And everybody, as I said, is keen on Alexander. This is from the Byzantine world. This is called the Alexander Romance, 1281. Alexander, I don't think the Persians were so keen on Alexander, were they, Mary? No. But all the Indians, for that matter. But he sure made an impact. And lots of rulers wanted to be like him because he was so successful. Okay, we whip on this whistle-stop tour to the Timurid Empire. So the Mongol Empire has dispersed, and Timur is the next great dynasty, the Timurid Empire. He's a big patron of the arts. This is, I love this picture, this is typical of a kind of Timurid warrior. But the painting's becoming very subtle now and more sophisticated. You know, there's so much material, but if you think Timurid and you go and look for Timurid work, you'll see how extraordinarily sophisticated it's getting compared to that early Arab work that we saw.